Chapter 23. Terrible news leads to good days. Naruto and Tayayu continued their lives happily for 3 more months. It seemed that everything was looking up for them lately. Tayayu hadn't had to beat anyone up lately for questioning her feelings for or trying to steal her blonde-haired idiot. Naruto had gotten to Tayayu to a level he felt was strong enough for her to hold her own in a fight against Akatsuki, making it so he could fight the other one. They had done a couple of missions lately. Currently they were returning from an A-rank mission where they had to assassinate a mob boss who was causing trouble on the border of the Land of Fire. Naruto was looking at the cut Tayayu got on her hand from a swordsman that attacked her from the shadows. Tayayu-chan, you need to be more careful on missions from now on. Tayayu looked at the cut on her hand, then glared over at her blonde-haired lover. This is your fault. If you wouldn't have gotten all angry, then I wouldn't have been distracted. Naruto rose an eyebrow at her outburst. Coming from you, Tayayu-chan, really? She looked away from him. I have no idea what you are talking about, shithead-kun. Naruto smirked at her, knowing that she was busted and couldn't get away with it. He was right. He had gotten upset when the mob boss had made a pass at her, a very obvious one. Not only that he tried to touch her, when his hands got close Naruto had grabbed his wrists and broken them. Proceeding with even more brutal attacks, unhappy with someone not only hitting on but trying to touch his woman. Tayayu had beaten people bloody for just looking at Naruto and saying they wanted him. She really did not have any room to complain. Luckily she only got a small cut, though it was really bothering her blonde-haired boyfriend. Said man slowly took her hand, snapping her out of her thoughts, and she watched as his hand became ignited with his Kyuubi chakra. He put his finger gently on her cut and it started to heal slowly, putting his little chakra into her as he needed to. As it finished healing he smiled at her. All better, Tayayu-chan. Tayayu looked at her hand then smiled at him. Let's see if it works right. Naruto rose an eyebrow at her, then she slapped him on the back of the head. Idiot. You got me cut. Naruto sighed as he looked at her. Next time I am going to leave the cut on you. Tayayu leaned into him a bit as they walked. Yeah, I am sure you will, seeing as it bothers you more than me. I bet the next time that I get a cut you will end up healing it again just so that it doesn't bother you, just like you always do. Then I will hit you and we will have this conversation again and the cycle will continue over and over. Naruto smiled as he put his arm around her as they approached the gates of Konohagakure to see Tsunade standing there waiting for them. Naruto gave her a curious look. We were on our way, Ba-chan, I swear. Tayayu-chan hadn't even tried to distract me with physical activities. Tsunade had a downtrodden look on her face as she looked at the blonde-haired man she considered to be her son. Naruto gave her a confused look. Ba-chan, what's wrong? Tsunade motioned her hand to follow her and started to walk towards the Hokage Tower. Naruto gave Tayayu a confused look. She just shrugged as they started to follow after her. When they got there they saw that Shizune also had a depressed look on her face. Tsunade sat down in her chair. Naruto, there is something we have to tell you. Naruto sat down in a chair and Tayayu made herself comfortable on his lap as they both looked at Tsunade. The blonde-haired Hokage just sighed, then shakily handed Naruto a scroll, not having the strength to tell him herself. Tayayu grabbed the scroll, being who she was, she naturally opened it and read it first. Her eyes widened, then she rolled it up, looking back at the blonde-haired man she was currently sitting on. Naruto held out his hand as he looked at her. When she didn't give him the scroll though he noticed the look on her face. What is it, Tayayu-chan? Tayayu looked at the scroll then slowly put it in his hand. No matter what it was going to do, this was something she shouldn't keep from him. Especially after all the hassles that she had given him over keeping important information from her. Naruto opened the scroll then started to read it, his eyes widening at the end just as Tayayu had, but unlike her, he dropped the scroll. His eyes stayed wide as he stared at where he used to be holding the scroll as all the women in the room stared at him with concern. Naruto's eyes stayed wide as Tayayu turned on his lap. Hey, you okay? Naruto looked at her. How could I be okay? He is dead. How could I be okay when that stupid old perverted bastard is dead? Tayayu put her hand on his cheek as she rubbed his whisker marks, doing her best to try and keep him calm. The blonde-haired man looked at her. The look he possessed was something that she didn't want to see. A look that she hadn't seen since they were younger and they first met. The look of being alone, disconnected from the world and like there was nothing for him. Chiyuya quickly and roughly kissed him, trying to snap him out of the current mindset that he was in. When he didn't kiss her back though, she started to kiss him harder, trying to get him to react to her. Finally he started to kiss her back like she was looking for, and when they broke the kiss she looked at him eyes to see the look still there. Chiyuya put her hand behind Naruto's head. Hey, don't do this. Don't cut yourself off from me, I know you're hurting but don't hurt me too. Naruto just looked at her then slowly moved her off of him as he stood up. I will be home later, Chiyuya-chan. I just need time to process this. As he went to walk away she ran after him quickly, making Tsunade and Shizune both smile a bit. As both of them were out of the room, Tsunade said something that surprised Shizune. Maybe that irritating little redhead is good for my son after all. Naruto was walking down the street when the red-headed woman that he had fallen in love with practically tackled him to the ground. He used chakra in his hand and a nearby wall to keep them upright as he looked over his shoulder at her. She clung to him tightly, surprising the blonde-haired man since he wasn't used to seeing such a reaction from her. She was clinging to him like he was her last lifeline, that if she let him go she would be lost as well. Naruto just continued to look at her as she started to speak. Don't do this. Don't leave me alone, Naruto-kun. I need you as well, let me share your pain. Please. Naruto continued to look at her as she looked up into his blue fox-slit eyes with her chocolate-brown ones. He could see how much she was pleading with him to let her be there for him in one of his times of greatest needs. The blonde-haired man stared at her, then slowly his eyes returned to having some of the light they have had in his recent months with her. He slowly turned to face her and put his hand on her cheek as they continued to stare at one another. He gave her a small smile. You won't let me be alone, will you, Chiyuya-chan? Her grip tightened as their eyes stayed locked on the others. Never. If you are alone then I am alone as well. I don't want to be alone, I want to stay with my blonde-haired dumb ass. Said dumb ass just shook his head as he closed his eyes then reopened them, looking at her intensely with love. You know. You ruined what could have been a very romantic moment. Chiyuya-chan. She smiled a little at him. You know you loved it. Naruto shook his head then offered her his hand as they looked at one another. Come on, Chiyuya-chan, let's start heading home. Said red-headed woman quickly grasped the blonde-haired man's hand, then they headed towards their apartment. When they got there though, he soon found out that the conversation between his girlfriend and himself was far from over. She sat him down on the couch as they looked at one another. What is it that you are planning for us to do? The blonde-haired man rose his eyebrow at her. What do you mean, Chiyuya-chan? She poked him in the chest. I know that you are planning to do something about this pain guy that killed Jiraiya. It's who you are. I want to know what we are going to do about it. Naruto now understood where she was going with her comments. She was right. He had started to develop his plan on what he was going to do about pain. On the other side of that, he had also figured to leave her here with a note. She would have been extremely upset and would have tracked him down. If she found him and he wasn't already dead, then she would do him in herself. That was something he really didn't want to deal with. We have to get stronger, Chiyuya-chan. Neither of us are on par with someone who could beat Jiraiya-sensei. She looked at him. Even when we work together. Naruto nodded his head at her. Even when we work together, we could beat Jiraiya-sensei like that. Yeah, but someone who beat Jiraiya-sensei in his sage mode is someone we can't underestimate in the slightest. We will have to be very smart about this and utilize all of our abilities. Chiyuya looked at him then sat on his lap. So, what you're saying is that we aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Naruto nodded his head as he put his hands on her hips. That is what I am saying, Chiyuya-chan. Chiyuya nodded back at the blonde-haired man before she leaned towards him. Naruto thought that perhaps he was going to get a kiss from her, but instead she kissed his cheek then whispered in his ear. I swear to Kami though, if you leave me here I will find you. When I do I will rip off your balls and make you choke to death on them. How does that sound? Naruto had wide eyes then looked at her as he held her closer to him. I would much rather use them for more pleasurable activities, Chiyuya-chan. The red-headed Kunoichi looked at him with a rose eyebrow. Oh, you're trying to get me in the sack hut. Why on earth would I sleep with someone like you? The blonde-haired man just shook his head then lifted her off of him. All right then, no more making love. Chiyuya's eyes went wide as she looked at him. Wait. I was just kidding, damn it. Naruto smiled as he walked backwards towards the front door for his escape. just got off of the couch to look at him as he smiled at her some more. You were kidding. You're just all over the place, Tayayu-chan. You want to then you don't want to. I just don't know what to believe anymore. I guess we will just have to take about a week break from making love so that you know exactly what it is that you want. Love. Tayayu had a low growl coming from her as she quickly walked towards him as he put his hand on the doorknob. He started to twist the knob as she spoke though. No way in hell. Naruto quickly opened the door and leapt from their balcony, a small chuckle coming from him as she chased after him. He was able to outrun her until he stopped on the Hokage monument to watch the sunset until he was tackled to the ground by her. She sat on top of him glaring at him, trying to cut me off. Huh. I should kick your ass. Naruto smiled at her then looked back at the sunset, a more serious look on his face as he looked back at her. She looked at him as he just stared at her. Tayayu-chan, if I asked you a serious question would you give me a serious answer? She looked at him some more with a questioning look. Maybe. The blonde-haired man just held his serious look as she had a small smirk. She saw that his expression hadn't changed from her response then looked at him seriously. What kind of question? He just stared at her. Something that would change everything in our lives, for better or worse. Tayayu sat straight up on him instead of her normal position where she hovered over him a little. Her eyes just locked with his again. Fine. Naruto put his hand on her cheek. If I asked you the question, what would you say? I don't want to hear the answer that you think I want to hear either. I want the answer that you feel. She just stared at him, a little surprised by his question. Naruto-kun, you should know what I would say. He just stared at her. I know what I hope you would say. I can't know exactly what you are thinking. Half the time when I do think I know what you are thinking I am wrong. She just sighed as she looked at him. I would say yes Naruto, but I would want to wait a little bit longer. His eyes looked at her with a bit of a confused look. Isn't that the same as no? She shook her head. No, it's a yes a little later on. We are still too young for something like that Naruto. He shook his head. No, I don't think so. I know that I love you more than anything. All I want is to make you happy and keep you safe. I want your happiness to be with me for the rest of our lives, after losing him. I want to make sure I never lose you. She looked at him then kissed him tenderly. You're an idiot, do you know that? But you are a romantic idiot and my romantic idiot at that. He smiled at her. Does that mean it would be a yes right now? She just continued to look at him. It might mean that, but you know what is going to happen now. Naruto had a relatively good idea but shook his head. No, just to be sure, you're going to be taught a lesson for trying to cut me off for a week. Naruto shook his head. I figured as much. Can we at least go home first? Tayayu sat there and tapped her chin as if she was thinking, I don't think so. I think I should teach you the lesson right now. Naruto smiled and as she said, she taught him a lesson, right then and there. He swore one day they would get caught by someone if she didn't stop making love with him in public, not that he was necessarily complaining about it. To be continued.